Hi, wonderful third graders. I'm here to give you a mini review lesson on using key details to identify our addition and subtraction story problem types. Please take a second and get out your resource on addition and subtraction problem types and have it right next to you. The first problem type that you're already very familiar with is the get more problem type. We know for get more, there's a starting amount. A get more action happens, which causes that starting amount to become bigger or increase. So you guys know that there are a lot of get more actions that happen in our real lives. So you could be growing some plants and more grow. You could have an amount of something and your parents buy more. You could have an amount of something and more is delivered to you. You could have more friends arrive. You could have more time added. You could complete more problems. You could buy more of something. You could borrow more of something. You could earn more money or more resources. Pause the video for a second and brainstorm and jot down as many get more actions as you can think of, boys and girls. Wonderful. What did you think of? Wonderful. Okay, so you guys know every get more problem has a get out your math problem solving hands to act this out with me. There's a starting amount. The start amount is the amount that you have before the get more action happens, what the person or group started with. There's a get more amount, how much more they got. This piece is easy to identify because it's always in the get more action. Then there's the result amount or the total amount, the amount that there is after the get more action happens, what the group or person ends up with after they get more of something. Pause and see if you can remember the three parts of a get more problem and even see if you can write a get more problem in your head, a way that you got more of something. Oh my goodness, okay. Let's go to the next one. Okay, now on your resource, point to the takeaway problem type. For a takeaway problem type, there's a starting amount, and for this one, the starting amount is the whole or total amount. Then a takeaway action happens that causes that big amount to become smaller. Some of it gets taken away. Then the last part is the amount left because the amount decreases. Let's think of some takeaway actions that happen in our real life all the time. Let's say Mrs. Moore had some books and she returned some of them to the library. Well, that caused my starting amount of books to become fewer because I returned some. Let's say Miss Moore has mail and she delivers some of it to her third graders. Well, that causes her to have less than the amount she started with, so some was taken away. I could have some homework problems and I could complete some of them, which means that I have fewer left to complete. Some was taken away. I could have an amount of food and I ate some, so that took away an amount. I could be hanging out with friends and some left to go home, so I have fewer left. I could sell an amount of something or return or eat or borrow or even lose. Why don't you guys pause and take a second to think of some takeaway actions that happen in your life all the time or that you've experienced? What did you come up with? So you guys know in takeaway, the starting amount is the whole, which you guys know from looking at your reference that it goes on top. The starting amount is the total amount that we've started with before the takeaway action happens. Then there's the takeaway amount. And this is easy to identify because it's included in the takeaway action. It's how much was taken away from that whole or total. Last, there's the amount left. That's the amount that we have left over after the takeaway action happens. Next, boys and girls, is our put together problem. For put together, there's no action. You're not getting more of something's not getting taken away. You're just taking two amounts and you're putting them together to create a bigger amount. So there are two amounts and you take the two amounts and you add them together or put them together to make a new amount. So this happens in our real lives all the time. Two different people could have two amounts of the same thing and they put them together to get a greater amount. Two friends could add two amounts together. We could have two groups of friends combine to create a bigger group. Two classes could combine to create a bigger number of students. Or you could have different amounts of things and you could count to see how many you have in all. Think of a time in your life when you have put two amounts together to create a larger amount. Awesome. So you guys know, boys and girls, every put together problem has one amount or part, which is one person or group having something. I'm using my hands to show that first amount. Another amount, another person or group has something, and then you take those two amounts and you put them together to get a greater whole. Oh my goodness, you guys are really good at this one. Last is compare. For compare, there are two amounts, a greater amount and a lesser amount. There's no action. You just very closely look at those two amounts to compare them to find the difference, which is either how many more or how many less one amount has than the other. So you guys know for compare problem types, there's a greater amount, which is just the bigger amount, the person or group who has more of something, the amount worth more. And that goes right on top of your bar diagram, just like your resource shows. There's also the lesser amount. The lesser amount is the smaller amount. It's the amount worth less. We use clues and keywords to determine who has the lesser amount or the less amount of something. The difference is just the difference between the two amounts. It's the extra that you'd have to add to the smaller amount to get that larger amount. We have these things called difference words that tell us right away that the problem is telling us the difference. Those words are more of something, fewer, less, greater. Those tell you right away that you're being told the difference between the two amounts. So here's your helper that's right next to you. Please keep this really, really close to you because we're going to do a couple together, and then you'll get to show us what you know by solving some on your own and turning it into your teacher on Google Classroom. Wonderful listening. Let's review really quick. Get out those hands, get more, there's an amount. A get more action happens that causes you to get more of that amount, and then the amount gets larger. Keywords are earn, buy, make, find, grow, win, however you get more of something. Put together, get those hands out. There are two amounts. Show me those two amounts. And those two amounts are put together to get a whole that's much bigger because it's the total of those two amounts. Next is takeaway. For takeaway, the amount you start with is the total, and then some of that amount gets taken away. A takeaway action happens, and the amount gets smaller. So we know takeaway actions tell us it's a takeaway problem, like lost, ate, gave away, used up, and spent. Last is compare, which is just where there's two amounts, a greater and a lesser amount. There's no action, and you compare those two amounts to either find what is the difference or determine what is the greater amount or lesser amount. Pause for a second and see if you can remember all four of the problem types. Keep this out, boys and girls, because you're going to need to use it to help me identify the problem type. Okay, we know whenever we solve a problem, we read it at least 2 times. The first time we read it is just to understand the problem type. The second time is to highlight those key details and figure out how to solve it. Let's read it once together, and I'm going to let you guys read it once by yourself. On Google Classroom today, there are 63 math problems. Nazar completes 49 of these problems. How many math problems does Nazar have left to complete? You guys look at your resources and really look for key details that tell you the problem type. Use your acting hands to act it out. Okay, let's go through it together. Who knows that problem type? So boys and girls, on Google Classroom today, there are 63 math problems. Perfect. Nazar completes 49 of these problems. Okay, I know right away that completes means he finished them. So he started with 63 and he finished or completed 49 of them. So he had a total and he took some of them away by completing them. So his total amount became less because he finished some of them. Oh my goodness. So I know the action right away is takeaway because he had an amount, and since he finished some, he took away some of that total amount by finishing them. Look on your chart and see if there's any keywords that match the takeaway problem type. Well, there are. He completed some, so I know he took some away. Awesome. So I know right away, boys and girls, that this was a takeaway problem because Nazar took some of the problems away by completing them. His original starting amount became less because he finished some. Great thinking. Okay, once together, and then you'll read once by yourself. Read it with me. There are 2 parking lots at UPP. The first parking lot has 28 cars in it. The second parking lot has 35 cars in it. How many cars are there in all? Your turn. You guys read it, and you guys highlight those key details that tell you the problem type. Use your problem-solving hands to act it out if you'd like. Did you determine the problem type? Let's think through it together. So there are 2 parking lots at UPP. I'm using my hands to show 2 parking lots. The first parking lot has 28 cars in it. Okay, let's see if there's an action. Well, no, it says the second parking lot has 35 cars in it, but there's no action. We're not getting more. None of the cars are driving away. It just says that the second parking lot has 35 cars in it. So I know right away what type of, yes, because the second parking lot has 35 and all they want to know is how many there are in all. I know I just have to take the 2 parts, the number of cars in both parking lots, and if I add those together, it will tell me how many there are in all at UPP, how many cars there are in all, because there's 28 cars in parking lot 1, 35 in parking lot 2, so I just need to add them together. So I know right away that it's a put together problem. Is that what you guys got too? I knew it. Okay, next, boys and girls, at UPP, there are 556 students. At Evergreen Primary, there are 67 less students. How many students go to Evergreen? Take a second, pause the video, use your helper to look for key details to help you determine the problem type. Did you use your helper? What did you find? Well, at UPP, there are 556 students. At Evergreen, it doesn't tell us how many students there are, but it tells me there are 67 less. And boys and girls, I know right away 67 less. Less is a difference word. It's telling me how many fewer Evergreen has than UPP. So I know right away that that's the difference. There's not an action. It just told us the number of students at UPP, and the problem told us that Evergreen has 67 less. So I'm just using the difference to compare to the number of students at UPP to find how many students there are at Evergreen. Who else knew right away that it was compare? You rock stars. Okay, keep that helper next to you. We have one more. Okay, we'll read it once together and then we'll pause and you'll find those key details and identify the problem type. Lachey has 19 apples growing on her tree during the month of June. During the month of July, 25 more apples grow. How many apples are on Lachey's apple tree now? Pause, look for key details, act it out, and determine the problem type. I bet you could figure it out. So it said Shay had 19 apples growing on her apple tree during June, and then on July, 25 more apples grew. That word more and that word grow told me that she had a starting amount, and then more apples grew, and they want to know how many there are now. So I know there was an action. What was the action, boys and girls? The action was that 25 more apples grew. So that caused the original amount to become greater. It was a get more action because it caused Shay to get more apples on her tree. Who knew it was get more? Which key details told you it was get more? Yes, that more apples grew. Thank you for your fantastic listening, my friends. Now that you have this super helper in front of you, you are now prepared to solve addition and subtraction word problems independently. Use this and watch the video as much as you need to get very comfortable remembering these problem types. Also, use the bar diagram picture to help you draw your bar diagram each time on scratch paper. Good luck on your assignment, boys and girls. I can't wait to see it. Thank you for your good listening.